Hi, welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 226, and today's date is November 27, 2013, and the title of this episode is Tensions Between China and Japan Are Building. And we understand that the central bankers need to do one thing. They need to get a war started to cover up the economic collapse. They tried to do this with Syria. They created a false flag event with chemical weapons, and that did not pan out. Now they're using many different approaches because they understand the American people and the Congress do not want war. So their goal is exactly the same. They want to get into Iran and Syria and eventually start a war to cover up this economic collapse. So what they are doing, they are using the illusion that they want peace with Iran. And they put them on a 6-month trial period, and we can see what is happening at this time. Israel, Saudi Arabia, everyone's taking sides, and we understand that the envoys that speak to Washington, like Saudi Arabia's envoy and now Israel's envoy, they realize that there is a plan in motion, and it seems like Saudi Arabia and Israel are scaling back their rhetoric against Iran. What we see in Japan and China, Japan now is asking the U.S. to see if they're going to back them if something should happen. And yes, the U.S. has a treaty with Japan, and they will back them if something should happen. So before I get started now with the economic collapse news, I just want to tell everyone on Thursday, Thanksgiving, I will not be doing a report on that day. So I wish everyone who is celebrating Thanksgiving have a happy Thanksgiving. On Friday, I will continue with the report, and you guys can tune in and listen at that time. But let's get into the economic collapse news. And I've been saying this for quite a while now, that the unemployment and the recovery of the economy is in full swing, because what they need to do is they need to make everyone believe that the economy is improving. So they have Biden out on a train, Biden going out with the Democratic people, and they are campaigning, letting everyone know that the economy is getting better. Obama is out there, and he's letting everyone know that things are getting better. We have peace with the Iranians, the recovery, the housing is getting back, is doing very well. The job market, the number of claims is going down, and we can see that this is all building up to what is going to happen, where they're going to have some type of an event that will allow them to blame this collapse on another country. And right now, of course, we're in the holiday season, and a lot of companies are hiring people, and it's very difficult to gauge what the unemployment is doing. But of course, the mainstream, the corporate media are using this to their advantage, saying that the initial claims are much lower than they have been, and they believe that unemployment is getting better, and the job situation is getting much, much better. Now, I've always talked about real estate market and how the real estate market is doing, and we understand that it is declining. And what we are seeing right now is, of course, mortgage applications declining, and we're also seeing sales declining. New home builders are seeing cancellations, and we understand that the Fed is still purchasing billions of dollars worth of toxic real estate from the banks. And we did have an announcement from one of the Fed representatives letting us know that they would like to increase quantitative easing around 50%, which I believe is going to be a lot more. But there is another worry in the real estate industry, and what they are seeing right now is they are getting very worried that a lot of people are starting to miss payments on their mortgages. And right now what they're seeing, the banks like JP Morgan, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, they are seeing those people with home equity lines of credit. They are seeing many delinquencies. They are seeing them rise. They are rising right now, and right now it is about back in 2003, it was at 5.6%. It is now rising to between 6 and 7%, and there are fears that it is going to go much, much higher. And we understand why this is happening. We understand that the unemployment rate is not the true unemployment rate. We understand that the underemployment is hitting many, many families where they have just been let go from their main jobs and their full-time jobs, and now they have to take these part-time jobs. But of course, the unemployment rate does not reflect that, and we understand those people who are no longer looking for work are not recorded or not shown in the unemployment rate. So what's happening is people uh, are late now on their payments, and it is showing up, and the banks are very worried about what is happening in the industry. And we can see that this is only going to get a lot worse. This is not going to get better. Okay. Now, across the United States, we understand that there's been many, many military drills. We've seen it in Miami, we've seen it in Texas, we've seen it in LA, and recently we have seen it in Phoenix, Arizona, where they fly the black helicopters, they use live rounds in a city setting, and this is all for the preparation of DHS when the collapse happens. And there is no reason for them to practice within the city limits, and they don't tell the local law enforcement that they're doing this, so they have no idea. This is all planned for when the collapse comes. They understand that they are going to have to enact martial law. They're going to have to control the people, and they are going to need to do this. So what they're doing right now is we are seeing these drills so they are prepared. And I've said this in my past reports, and I have it on the x22report.com site on the right-hand side. How can you tell the collapse is coming? Well, there are different reasons. There are different ways of showing that something is about to happen. When a government is short cash and they can't pay for all their expenses, they start raising taxes, and they start searching for money in all different places. And we understand that the government is looking for money everywhere. They're going outside of the borders of the United States and across the ocean to many different countries of those people who are working out there, and they are taxing those people. We also understand when the government is, you see a lot more drills and a lot more of the DHS officers on the street using black helicopters, having more of these drills. We understand we are getting closer to the collapse, and we are seeing all of these things right now. When you see more draconian laws where they don't really make sense, they don't really go along with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, we understand that something is getting closer. And the last step, of course, is, and this is the most difficult step, is to confiscate the weapons from the American people, because what do we understand? Their whole entire mission is to remove and disarm the American people from their weapons. And we are seeing this right now happen in New York City. On the People, which is on the x22report.com site, you just go up there and click on the People. It is a forum of like-minded people who talk about the economic collapse and other issues. And what we are seeing is that someone has received a letter from New York, and they're saying that your weapon holds more than a certain amount of rounds, and you need to turn in these weapons. And this is eventually what the government wants to do. They want to make this a federal law. They want to pass the UN Arms Treaty. They want to pass the Dianne Feinstein gun bill, and they want to go around. They're going to use Obamacare. They're going to use a centralized database. This way they know where all the weapons are. So when the collapse comes, or before the collapse, it makes it easier for them to go around collecting, sending letters saying that you are in violation of a law, and they can come around and collect your weapon. And if you don't hand in your weapon, they know where you live, they know where to find you, and they'll come and pretty much get you. And this is what we are looking at right now. Now, the NSA is spying on every single American in the country. We know this for a fact, and what they have been doing is they have infected around 50,000 computers with malicious software, viruses, malware, and this continually spreads, and they are using this to get passwords. They're using this to steal information from your hard drive. They are using this to get email information and text message information. And they need to do this because they are creating social profiles of every single person, and they need to know who to go after before during and after the collapse, who is going to be a threat against the existing government, and they are building these social profiles. And one way they're doing this is these drones that are flying in the air right now are getting facial recognition cameras, which will allow them to take pictures to understand who this person is and if this is the proper target they should be going after. And this is what is happening right now. And now these drones are even getting smarter. What they have, the ability they have right now is they have the ability to communicate with each other and to bounce different information off of each other and create some type of defense plan. And this is what we are seeing at this time. Now, what else we're seeing is they're saying they're going to expand this technology. They're going to allow, and we've seen this from DARPA where they had this dog-looking type of robot. They're going to expand this, and these type of robots will be able to communicate with each other, and they'll be able to actually place them into teams like blue team, red team, and both of them, they'll have facial recognition cameras. They'll be able to communicate with each other, and they'll be able to work together on a mission. And this is how they are going forward with this, and we can see how this is not going to work out well for the American people, and especially everyone else around the world is, as you can see already, America started out with drones, started using drones, and now every single nation is beefing up their drones. And now the United States and other countries are taking it to the next step, and they will soon use these type of technology on the people within the countries. And we understand that this is a huge issue. Okay. Now, like I said in the beginning of this report, China and Japan, there are a huge amount of tension over the disputed island, and right now the Pentagon chief reaffirms U.S.-Japanese treaty covers the disputed islands, and this goes on to say, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel, in a phone call on Wednesday with Japanese counterpart, reaffirmed that the U.S.-Japanese defense treaty covers a small island group where China established a new airspace defense zone last week. And they're saying if something happens, if there's a skirmish, the United States will come to the aid of Japan. And this is building up. The tensions are building up, and we can see this could be the catalyst to what is coming, and that is war. And again, these central bankers do not care how they start the war. It makes no difference to them, because what they're looking to do is they're looking to cover up what is about to happen, and that is, of course, the economic collapse. And they understand they only have a certain amount of time before the dollar collapses, because remember, their plan right now has been delayed. They did not get into Iran. They did not get into Syria. They are not selling their resources using the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. This is a huge problem for them, and the only way to cover up what is about to happen is to blame it on another country. And this is why I've been talking about false flag events inside the United States, because right now the American people are not into going to war. And the only way for them to make a war happen or get the American people riled up to go into war is to have something here in the United States. Now, what I find very interesting is that during this peace talks with Iran, with their nuclear program, and Saudi Arabia, Israel, the other Middle Eastern countries, Canada, France, everyone's talking about this is a bad deal, but the United States wants peace and they're trying to work it out. Iran just announced the development of a ballistic missile technology. A top Iranian military leader announced late Tuesday that Iran has developed a ballistic missile technology. Now, again, they understand, because we've seen this in the past. We saw this happen with Qaddafi in Libya. The United States made some deal with Qaddafi. Qaddafi let them in to inspect the weapons of mass destruction. He made agreements that he would get rid of them, and then eventually he slipped up somehow on the agreement, and the United States went in and removed him, because, again, the goal of the entire thing is to get their natural resources on the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. So we are going to see the same thing happen here in Iran. This is a 6-month trial period for Iran. Nothing has really been set in stone. And what are we seeing now? We're seeing Saudi Arabia, who was very angry in the beginning, has said, okay, this might look like a nice type of plan where it could lead to peace. Now, the same thing with Israeli. They both sent envoys in to talk about what is happening, and Israel right now is saying they're going to back off with any type of strike, and we are not going to do anything further until after the 6 months. That's very interesting, within the 6 months. And what do we know is happening in 6 months? Well, we understand that the debt ceiling debate is going to happen back in March. We understand that the tapering is going to happen as early as December, which it probably will not happen. They'll just push it off a little bit longer, because we understand that they are creating some type of event to happen. And this is all moving into place, because it's very odd that Israel and Saudi Arabia would be arguing, be very angry, making up their own plans to strike Iran, and then after this deal, if you want to call it that, came about, and they both spoke to the Obama administration, now they're both backing down and waiting out the 6 months. So this leads me to think that something is in the works and something is being planned at this time. And this goes on to say, from Israel, if no final agreement is reached within the 6 months and the administration opts to extend the first step deal beyond its initial term, all bets are off, and Israel with Saudi Arabia will strike. Now, of course, Mike Rogers, Ted Cruz, they're going out there saying that this is a very bad deal with Iran, and they went on to say that every day the president deal looks worse and worse, and Ted Cruz is equally critical, saying the agreement with Iran neglected to address the threat of intercontinental ballistic missiles, and we all understand that Iran is developing it. But they are pushing Iran into a false sense of hope like they did with Libya, and this is how the central bankers like to work. They give a little bit, they make the country feel like they're doing the right thing, they give them hope, and then boom, they go in and they strike. Now, Saudi Arabia is still a little bit angry with the United States here, and Saudi Arabia understands what is happening. They understand that the dollar is on its last leg. They understand that the dollar will collapse. So again, with Egypt and other Middle Eastern countries, they have been making deals with other countries to make sure that they are hedging their bets against what is about to happen. And right now, Saudi Arabia is emphasizing the diversification of its military supplies in a warning to the United States. And diplomat Bandar stressed that he was developing alternative military suppliers, and they cited, of course, China, France, and Russia. And they're looking at different alternatives to supply them with military assets, and because they didn't want to be dependent on the United States, because if the dollar starts collapsing, just like Egypt did, they look towards other countries. Saudi Arabia has been talking to Putin in Russia and to China to make sure that they have protection with if the U.S. dollar does collapse. And we see China making, and Russia of course too, making deals all over the world, while the United States is trying to continually push and use force with all these countries, with drone attacks, just keeping the dollar above water right now before it collapses. And they understand that this collapse is coming, and this is why they're trying all different tactics, but they're still trying to reach the same goal. And like I said in the past, we are going to see some type of false flag event, because we understand when the whole thing starts to fall apart, they will always go back to what they know, and that is war. They realize that, and I've said this in my past reports, the doomsday event will be a cyber attack, with other events happening, something like a chemical weapon attack, a nuclear dirty bomb attack, because they've fed us these breadcrumbs in the past couple of weeks of Iraqi terrorists inside the country. These are bomb makers, and they lost track of them. And I went on to the x22report.com site with the potential false flags, and I said a couple months ago, DHS already reported that they lost track of a lot of immigrants, and could be potential terrorists. This is what they reported at that time. We also understand that the Al-Qaeda leader and the new Al-Qaeda leader in Syria, the Syrian that they call him, has also give warnings saying that no civilian is safe. So we understand what is happening, and we understand that they've had power grid drills and they have other drills to get prepared for this. And right now, NATO has kicked off a Cyber Coalition 2013, the largest ever exercise of its kind, intended to thwart massive simultaneous attacks on member states and their allies. So, just going by what Janet Napolitano has told us, that it's not if but when a cyber attack occurs, and we can bet on it that it will occur because they are setting everything up. Because the Fed has already said we need to make new tools and new ways of handling bank runs. They have already decided that if the banks are not going to receive the Fed money, or the interest rates are going to rise, they are going to have to take depositors' monies. And we can see that they've created the bank bail-in documents, the FDIC Bank of England document. So all of this is all coming in and all playing towards what is definitely going to happen. Because let's just step back for a second and take a look at this picture here. We have the United States right now setting up bases encircling China. China realizes this. They understand what America is doing. We also see that America has set up a missile shield within Europe, in Poland all the way down to Romania, and there's 40,000 NATO troops having drills at this time in Europe. We understand that America is never getting out of Afghanistan. They are going to stay there. Why? Natural resources. It's in a strategic position right on the border of Russia, and on the other side is Iran. And they have a huge copper mine, and they use the drug of the poppy fields to create opium to fund their covert operations. So we see what's happening here. We also see that Japan has just launched their the largest world warships since World War II, and they are setting up missiles pointing towards the disputed island and to China. And we understand all this. Now China has set up an air defense zone, and the United States has already said that we'll come to the aid of Japan if something should happen. If we move back to the Middle East and we see what's happening there, we see that CNN has reported that Assad has a cache of chemical weapons that the UN inspectors don't know about, and that could be used as a false flag event. We see that the central bankers, United States government, is using now peace talks after 30-plus years of saying that Iran can develop a nuclear weapon, which never happened, of course. But now they're going down the route, and it seems like they're using the same exact strategy as Libya. And look what happened to Qaddafi. And again, Susan Rice, John Kerry were out there saying that Assad has to go. So we understand they need to get into Syria because they made a list saying what countries they're going to invade. And what is left now? Syria and Iran. These are the only two countries. They're the ones who are not using the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. What has China done? Well, they made some swap trades with the UK using the yuan. They also said the U.S. dollar, the treasury bonds, does not benefit China at this time, so they'll no longer add to their treasury bonds. They're trying to get rid of their U.S. dollars right now, and they're pouring tons and tons of U.S. dollars into Africa to build up their infrastructure. They made a deal with Kenya to have a clearinghouse for the yuan, and they're also going to start using the yuan to sell their oil, bypassing the dollar. So we can see what is happening, and they have not stopped adding to their gold reserves. They are building that up as fast as they possibly can. And what do we see happening here in the gold market? We see the prices continually dropping. All of this entire picture shows us what is happening. Now, in the United States, what do we see happening? We see more military drills. We see the government trying to get more taxes from the people. We see them using propaganda trying to convince all the American people that the economy is recovering. This is what we're seeing at this time. We're also seeing them trying to disarm the American people with the UN Arms Treaty, which is signed by John Kerry but pending in the Senate. We see the gun bill, which is pending in the Senate, and they're using more and more events, gun-related events, like we just saw the Yale lockdown during the same time the Sandy Hook report was coming out, and this again will increase. We will see more of these type of events, and all of this entire picture, you put it all to one picture, shows us what has happened. And even if you go back further, I mean, we have to remember the NDAA, the Patriot Act, all of this shows us where we are moving. Now, DHS is a federal law enforcement agency which is allowed to interact with local law enforcement, and now they're paying them off with grants and money, so they are the superiors, and all local enforcement has to go and ask DHS for permission, and they're setting up command centers in all the different cities while they're giving them grants. So we can see how they are using this, how they're playing this out, and how they're putting the entire thing together to eventually try to control what is going to happen during this collapse. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening today. Again, there will be no report on Thursday, and I do wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.